Tony Bennett, the man the world adored as the smiling gentleman of music, seemed like the very definition of kindness. A humble artist who stood on stage with legends like Frank Sinatra, Count Basie, and even Lady Gaga, always with a warm grin and a voice that never faded. Yet, behind that polished image, hidden beneath decades of success and fame, lived a secret that shocked even those closest to him. For more than half a century, Tony carried a deep grudge, a bitterness so personal and raw that it never left his heart. And though the world saw only elegance and grace, he waited until his final years to let the truth slip. A confession that revealed a rivalry so intense that it haunted him for 50 years. His story began far from the glamorous lights of New York stages. Born Anthony Dominic Benedetto in 1926 to Italian immigrant parents in Queens, his childhood was marked by poverty, hunger, and cold winters with coal stoves barely keeping the family warm. When he was just 10, tragedy struck as his father passed away, leaving his mother to stitch clothing in a sweatshop for meager pay. The young boy quickly understood that life was a struggle. Yet, in the middle of all that hardship, music became his escape. At the age of 10, he sang at the opening of the Triborough Bridge, his voice so pure that even the mayor praised him. A moment that proved he was destined for something greater. By 13, he was already working as a singing waiter, balancing trays of pasta and pizza before stepping up to entertain customers. Every note not only won applause, but also put food on his family's table, teaching him humility and resilience. As he grew, war came calling. Drafted into the army at 18, Tony found himself in the chaos of World War II, surviving freezing nights, brutal battles, and the haunting loss of friends. Yet even in the middle of destruction, he sang to soldiers, discovering that his gift could bring comfort where nothing else could. After the war, the GI Bill allowed him to study music seriously, shaping a style unlike anyone else, learning not to copy other singers, but to phrase like a jazz musician. His unique sound soon caught the attention of Pearl Bailey and Bob Hope, who opened the doors of show business for him, and with a single suggestion, changing his name from Anthony Benedetto to Tony Bennett, a legend was born. The 1950s and 60s turned him into America's voice of hope. Hits like Because of You, Cold, Cold Heart, and Rags to Riches made him a household name. His smooth delivery bridged gaps between pop and country, while his jazz collaborations shocked critics and thrilled fans. By the time he recorded I Left My Heart in San Francisco in 1962, his place in music history was sealed, a timeless anthem that would define both him and an entire city. Yet fame came with heavy costs. Marriages crumbled, scandals filled the press, and as rock music took over in the 70s, his career declined. Columbia Records pushed him to record Beatles covers he despised, fans turned away, and his finances collapsed. Addiction nearly killed him, and one night he overdosed, slipping unconscious in a bathtub, only surviving because his wife pulled him back from death. But Tony Bennett was never one to surrender. With the help of his son Danny, he began an unexpected comeback. Instead of chasing trends, he leaned into what made him unique, performing for college crowds, appearing on MTV Unplugged, and later recording groundbreaking duets with Amy Winehouse, Elton John, Stevie Wonder, and Lady Gaga, proving that even in his 80s and 90s, he could still outsell younger artists. His voice, though weathered with age, carried the same emotion it had in his youth, and audiences loved him for it. He became the rare legend who was celebrated across multiple generations, winning Grammy after Grammy, selling millions of records, and leaving behind not just music, but also a legacy of education through the Frank Sinatra School of the Arts, which he and his wife Susan founded in Queens. Through it all, Tony was remembered as gentle, kind, and endlessly generous. But few people knew about the one story he kept locked inside, the secret he carried for decades. Despite his smile and warmth, he harbored a bitter resentment for one singer, a feud so personal that it was never spoken of publicly, only whispered in private moments. And as Alzheimer's slowly took away his memories in his final years, his voice remained strong, and with that clarity came a moment of honesty. He finally revealed the truth, confessing the name of the singer he had despised for over 50 years, a shocking revelation that changed how many saw him, because even the kindest man in music carried scars that never healed. And the story of that rivalry is what we are about to uncover. But the question remained, who was the singer Tony Bennett truly despised? Who could stir such bitterness in a man otherwise known for his warmth and humility? Through decades of interviews, he rarely spoke a negative word about anyone. Yet, behind closed doors, there was tension that insiders whispered about, a rivalry with none other than Frank Sinatra. The very man who once praised Tony as the greatest popular singer of all time. The friendship the public believed was built on respect was in truth far more complicated. Sinatra, with his mafia ties and explosive temper, treated Tony with both admiration and cruelty. In private circles, he mocked Bennett's style, calling him a choir boy trying to play jazz, while Tony quietly resented the constant comparisons. No matter how many hits he had, no matter how many Grammys he won, the shadow of Sinatra always loomed over him. The bitterness deepened in the 1960s when both men were fighting for dominance in Las Vegas. Sinatra controlled the Strip, owning casinos and demanding loyalty from club owners, while Bennett, who wanted no part in mob politics, found doors quietly closing on him. Insiders later admitted that Sinatra's people often pushed Tony out of the best gigs, warning venues not to book him. And though Tony smiled in public, he carried the sting of being treated as second best, when in truth, he knew his voice could match anyone's. For 50 years, Tony swallowed the resentment, performing alongside Sinatra, sharing stages, even recording tributes, but never forgiving the way he was pushed aside. And when illness weakened him near the end of his life, he finally spoke honestly, telling those close to him that while he respected Sinatra's talent, he could never forgive the way he was treated. It wasn't jealousy, it was betrayal. The feeling of being silenced in an industry that should have had room for both men. And so the world lost Tony Bennett with that truth revealed at last. A man who gave joy to millions, who inspired generations, but who carried in his heart a wound that never healed. Proof that even legends, no matter how graceful they appear on stage, have secrets hidden in the shadows, and sometimes the greatest rivalries are not sung about, but buried in silence until the very end.